Welcome to the tip.
Very happy to be back with y'all today for the tip on top of the tip.
Yes. How you do, girl?
Girl, I'm actually feeling really good. Sometimes you just got to release and let go of things. And at the same time, just allow things to settle and fall where they may. And doing that has just given me a certain amount of peace that I probably have been keeping myself for a long time. I'm very happy to be back here in this peaceful state. How are you feeling?
Try to preach that word. Like that is literally exactly where I am as well. Like I'm in a space where I feel like I was in a lot of chaos and like just a lot of like just internal turmoil and external experiences. And I feel like at this point, I am really allowing my intuition to lead me and telling my mind to sit down, right? That's where I am. And I'm like, I am trusting that my intuition is taking me where I'm supposed to go and I'm being guided. And even if the next step doesn't turn out to be the best step, I'm going to be led to the best step.
Always. That kind of goes back to we just gonna hop into the tip on top of the tip because
so we're gonna start this thing all right.
Welcome to Tip on Top of the Tip. I am Zenitra Perry.
And I am INEZ Chimangarisa. We got a lot to say.
We're about to preach a whole word without even doing what we came here to do. So you know what we gotta do? We're gonna start this thing out right.
We're gonna start this thing out right with the value. So if you're not familiar, every time we do a tip, we do a value of the day. So Z is going to let us know what the value of the day is.
All right. We throw it into our little randomizer and see what it pulls out. All right. Today's value is parenting. Parenting. Ooh, that sounds like a whole separate conversation at the top of the tip. So it's going to be hard to reel it in, but.
Okay. So parenting, and actually the funny thing is I was watching, I'm a coach. I was watching a video about coaching. And the crazy thing was the guy on there was talking about coaching in the same vein as parenting, right? And so for me, parenting is really like discipleship and guidance, right? Like it really is being able to take someone through stages of their life and guide them along, not controllingly, but from a place of wisdom, right? To help them direct their path initially on the way that is best for them. So what he said was there are 4 different stages of parenting. And I was like, well, this is good. I can take this into my parenting. He said the first stage is training. Right. And what you're doing during training, which is like 1 to 4, you are training them to respond a certain way to a stimulus. So when I call you, you come. Right. If I say stop, you stop. Right. Then he talked about moving and transitioning them from 5 up until 9 into the place where you are training. I mean, you're teaching them. Right. So at this point, you're teaching them why the rules are what they are, right? You already gave them the rules. When I call you, come. When I say stop, you stop, right? Now you're teaching them, why do you have to do this, right? Why does it matter? Then as they get older, you start showing them and transitioning them into being able to have a bit more autonomy. So you are allowing them to make decisions with your supervision. Right. So if they want to choose their clothes, they can choose their clothes. If they want to choose their food, they can choose their food. Right. As long as we don't get reckless. Right. And then after transitioning comes trust. Ooh. And that's when you just give them full autonomy. Right. You can move like an adult. Right. And I'm going to let you take the falls of the adults, make the decisions of an adult, take the benefits of the adults, all of the things like, and if you need something, come get me. I can help. But I'm trusting that, because I took you through this process. And it blew my mind because I was like, that is true in parenting. It's true in coaching and it's true at work.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you're bringing people on a team, there is a bit of parenting that happens initially. Right. And you have to kind of tell them like, this is what we do here. This is the culture. right? When they first get there. But then you really need to take them and tell them why this is the culture. Like, this is why we do this way. This is why we meet this often. This is why we, right? And then you need to transition them to the point where you're not on top of them every day, but you're kind of like, they know, like, I'm gonna go see, are you good? You all right? Okay, you need some help? And then you just let them go and let them be. And I thought it was so dope because I was like, I could just apply this in every area. Right. Yeah. Like it's really true. And it's like while you're parenting, you're holding somebody to a high expectation, right? Like, I expect you to do well, right? Like, and always holding that space, right? That expect them to do well. At the same time, sometimes, and this is in work and in parenting children, you also have to have in the beginning, sometimes more belief for them than they have for themselves.
Right.
So that they can borrow your belief until they have their own.
I love that. Have more belief in them than they have for themselves, so that they can borrow your belief until they have their own.
Yes.
That is a whole word. That is a whole word.
Yeah.
I always find it interesting how we end up approaching these topics differently, because you are so structured. You're like, okay, let me give you the 4 phases. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just like, I'm gonna be all over the place. I'm like, okay, I get it. I get the structure. I didn't go there. But when I think about parenting, for me, I am a teacher through and through, right? Like, I am an educator. I want to learn the things so that I can teach the people the things, whether those people be my children, whether they're my teammates, whether they are my friends.
Exactly. If
I learn something, you're going to learn it too, because I'm going to make sure that I bring that information to you. So when I think about parenting, it's interesting because I didn't think about parenting as a value. So it's interesting that it was even on this values list.
That's true.
And like, I don't know why. I mean, it's obviously a priority in my life, but whenever I think about my core values, like, parenting just wasn't even on the list, even though, again, it's something that I'm actively doing all the time. But when I think about from the perspective of teaching and educating, the next generation or the next in line, no matter what that is, that absolutely is a high value for me. And I think that's because it's tied to my value of learning. So I moved from learning into teaching, and that feels very parental, similar to how you said, whether it's from a parent child to coaching client to leader team member. But parenting will humble you. It will humble you in ways that, as the teacher, I feel that I have many of the answers. I know I don't have all of them, but I feel like most of them I have. How's it ever? Dealing with different personalities, dealing with different people who have different needs, who have different expectations, who go about processing things different ways. It truly requires you to be even more flexible. You get to come up with the plan, but you have to be flexible in order to bend and shape and flex to make sure that your student, who is the person that's a focus, right? You're not the focus as the parent. And I think that's something that as leaders, we have to move beyond, as parents, we have to move beyond. Like, it's not about you. It really is about your audience, your teammate, your client, your child, and figuring out what's the best way to get them the information that they need. And also coming from a place of respecting people's differences, right? Like, I have one child who is extremely extroverted and is going to want to talk about everything. And then I have another child who is extremely introverted and will only want to talk about things when they're ready to talk about them, even if that is at an inconvenient time for me, right? And so I can't have one way of parenting and then try to apply it across the board. And you can't have one way of leading and apply it across the board. Of course, you have your principles, but whenever you're working with individuals, there's a certain, amount of humility and just taking a step back to be like, how can I make sure that I'm getting the information to the audience, to its intended audience, in a way that's going to be most effective to them, not in a way that's easiest for me.
Right.
Which would be my preference.
Yes.
But if you are going to assume that responsibility of parenting in these different situations, then it requires humility, and it's no longer just about you, because you're trying to get them to move from one particular phase to the next, whether it's, going from training to teaching to transitioning to trust. I absolutely love the last phase of trust. I feel like, again, a lot of the things that we talk about fall in the same vein when we're talking about respect. We're talking about trusting yourself, but being able to trust others. And to get to that place where you feel comfortable knowing that you've equipped them with the tools so that they can operate from a place of autonomy is required in order for you to trust them. But you can't trust if you haven't done your part, or you can't be mad at them because you don't trust them because you didn't do your part, right? So there's just a lot of responsibility that comes with parenting, responsibility, humility, before you can even get to the expectation that you have of the person on the other side. But I think the goal of getting to trust and thinking about what that process may look like, if you're focusing on that as the end goal and not focusing on them completing a task or something that's, kind of for the moment, that'll definitely help shape or reframe how you approach parenting in kind of any one of these 3 different situations.
What I was thinking about when you were talking about parenting being a value, the reason why parenting is a value is because you have to choose to do it, right? When you think about people who actually have parenting as a value, just because you have a child does not mean parenting is a value for you. Because you talked about being responsible, right? You talked about being humble. We talked about guiding people, discipling them, communicating with them in a way that they specifically understand based on who they are, not based on who you are, right? In order to do all those things, you have to value parenting, right? Like, you can have these kids, but there are a lot of parents who give them away, don't pay them any attention. Ain't worried about them at all, right? Just doing whatever, just letting them parent themselves. And then at the end, expecting to be able to transition them and trust them, right? But like you said, you haven't done the things up front. You haven't valued parenting up front. So you can't get to 3 and 4 stages. Yeah. Right? Like, you haven't instilled in them a belief. You have to value instilling belief in your kids in order to value parenting. Right? You have to instill in them, like, holding the space, the expectation of greatness, right? As opposed to, telling them, you can't do this, you can't do that, don't do this. You're just like so-and-so, like, right? Like, you have to value parenting in order to not do those things, right? So I was just thinking about, like, how my husband and I really focus on, like, conscious parenting.
Same.
It's the hardest thing ever in life.
Ever.
One, unlike at work, you can't turn it off. Right? You go to work, you go home, you're done. It's a break. When you're just parenting, you cannot turn it off because these kids here every day. So, but that is the reason why we learn how to parent, right? Is because we value parenting well. Right? And I feel like a lot of times we assume that we know how to parent well because we've had a child. But if you really value it, right, you are learning how to do it better. Right? So that is what made me just be like, it is really a value. Now that I think about it, because some people don't value it.
Yes. It's interesting because it has actually become the most important value in my life right now, to the point where I'm just anti-grind culture. Like, I don't have time to grind. And at least that's what I was telling myself. But I had to reframe it to say that the grind is different now. I'm no longer grinding for a job, but I am grinding as a parent.
I know that's right. Yes.
At this point, I am raising 3 children. We have a +1 in the household that, that I now have assumed that responsibility for as well. So now I'm parenting 3 children, 12, 11, and 7. I'm doing it as a single parent and as someone who values parenting and wants to do it well, extremely well, right? Like the standard that I have for myself in my life is like here. But the standard I have for myself as a parent is like the tip on top of the tip. Like, no, I'm responsible for these beings and creating these, helping to mold these future citizens for the global community. And I take that very seriously because they are then going to have their own sphere of influence. So it goes beyond me. And while I was saying, I'm not grinding, And for a while I had an issue with it because I'm like, but you're a hard worker. You're always, figuring out things to do, to learn, putting them in action. And it made me feel like I wasn't being myself just based off of the narrative that I gave myself. Shout out to my therapist, because in therapy, as I was talking to her about what I was focusing on, it was like, oh, girl, you're still grinding. You're just grinding as a parent right now.
Yes.
And that is the top priority for me in this moment. So it's interesting that whenever I saw it, I didn't think of it as a value, but now that I think about the way my life is set up right now, It is one of the top values.
Yes.
And my personal core values then align with how I parent, but parenting is definitely a priority, and it is a value. So if you want to do it and you want to do it well, it's going to be hard. But if you make that a value, then it's totally doable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Y'all, that was a topic, honey.
That was
we didn't got to the tip, y'all.
We didn't even get to the tip yet.
Giving y'all the juice on the top first.
So hit us with, what is today's tip on top of the tip?
Honey, so the tip today is everybody can eat.
Yes. I love that. Okay, so a little backstory. I really am tickled every week that I'm like, I really say all of these things. Like,
yes. Okay.
Created.
I think we playing like, no, we do be saying these things. Like,
yeah, we this is literally how we communicate with each other. We have our own language. But I remember this was at this point, obviously like 10 years ago, but we were just now getting involved or interested in real estate. And I had come down to Philly from New York, where I was living at the time, to explore, flipping houses in Philly. And I remember reaching out to a colleague of mine that I went to college with, and she reached out to someone that she knew who was a realtor. And both INEZ and I were learning different things. We were taking different classes where we were learning about real estate. I think you actually got started in it before I did. And in the moment of trying to bring people together, I just had this feeling of like, everybody can eat. There's no reason to withhold, to try and keep things to myself, to try to do it all by myself. And it just became so much more fun to have this perspective of everybody can eat, because then you invite more people in and then you're able to do bigger things. So it reminded me of, sometimes people say things like, Black people don't work together, or you can't work with a group of women, or like all of these sayings that people have. And in that moment, I was like, no, that's not true. Like, that's not my experience. That's not my life. That's not a philosophy that I have yet. Instead, it's everybody can eat. So there's enough space for all of us. So that's more the backstory. But, what does everybody can eat mean to you?
So I feel like it's funny because I was there in that moment and I didn't even think about that. But even in that moment, I was thinking about everybody who was there, right? Like, and some of them were connected to me and some of them were connected to you. And it made me think about like, complimenting versus competing, right? Like bringing something extra, adding to, right? Allowing people to add to you and adding to people, like enhancing each other versus like feeling like we have to defeat each other, right? I got to defeat you, you got to defeat me. Like, and it's important, especially as Black people. It's important for us because our ancestors were taught that only some of y'all can eat, right? It's only going to be a few of y'all, and you got to look this way, you got to act this way, you got to speak this way in order to eat, right? And it has created so much division for generations across continents, right? And so it's so important for us to lean into this tip of everybody can eat, because there is such an abundance of everything in the world. And when you lead and move in abundance, you create and attract more abundance. But if you lead and move in scarcity, you create in more scarcity. You just decide the lens that you're looking through. So I was even thinking, as you were talking, I was like, not only can everybody eat, all my friends gonna eat.
Go eat. Okay.
All my friends gonna eat. Everybody attached to me, as for me in my house. And my friends and my circle, we gonna eat. Because not only do I know that there's an abundance, I'm gonna make sure that the people who are connected to me get access to it. I remember you were having a conversation with me about how, you are very much in leadership and I'm very tactical, right? And so how you were saying like, you are meant to be a CEO, right? Like you're meant to build a corporation. You just need to bring out all your friends, right? Like we're gonna team it up, we're gonna work together, and we're gonna build the corporation. But to me, that is the idea of all my friends don't eat. Like, right? Like in the midst of everybody, like I know that there's a wealth, and I'm gonna make sure that, with the wealth, like we all gonna get wealthy together. What Jay-Z say? Like, what's better than 1 millionaire poor or whatever it is?
2. Well, tell my him.
Or 2. Mm-hmm. Well, he also said, and I'm not even a lyricist. He also said, what he said? He said, you are only, and I might get this wrong. You're not rich until everybody around you is rich or something like that. Like, yes, like all your friends are rich too. Like you're not really rich, right? Until your friends are rich too. And I want that because all my friends are gonna eat too.
I don't want to be rich by myself. Okay. I want us to do yacht things together. Okay.
Honey.
I want us to live abundantly together. So a couple of things, like, we actually don't communicate before. So I'm like, okay, well, scarcity mindset, check. Abundance mindset, check. Competition, collaboration, check. So we are 100% in alignment. But when I was thinking about scarcity mindset and how it shows up, it does create this competitive atmosphere, but that's kind of the external manifestation of it. But even internally for yourself, when you have a scarcity mindset, you rush to judgment, you rush to make decisions because there's this fear that there's not going to be enough if you don't do it right now. You also take opportunities that are not good for you because you are afraid that another opportunity may not come about. Well, I got to take this one because if I don't take this one, then who said that there won't be other opportunities that are more in alignment with who you are that are going to come about? So you should say no to these so that you have not only kind of the time, but the energy to fully put into the things that you are actually aligned for, that you are destined to do, that you actually want to do. like simply that you actually want to do. But scarcity mindset shows up as it relates to your money. You may not want to take the trip because you don't think you're gonna get any more money.
No, I did a whole video on that. Go check it out.
Check it out on YouTube. Okay. You may not think that you have enough time. So you end up overpacking your schedule, overscheduling yourself. You may think that you don't have enough skill set. So you're in this space of constantly learning more to prove that, that you are worthy. And I think that's what it really, the underlining thing is, am I enough? Am I worthy?
Right.
Am I safe?
Right.
And those are the questions that we're always asking ourselves. And anytime the answer to one of those is no, that is automatically putting you in this space of scarcity mindset. And you begin to clamor for things. You begin to rush, you add haste. You try to get there before everyone else gets there because you don't think it's going to be enough by the time you get there. So this scarcity mindset, even before you even think about how it impacts your interaction with other people, it definitely has an impact on you and how you show up in the world and just kind of your own internal dialogue. And so moving into this space of abundance mindset, it it can be challenging because I know a lot of times when people talk about abundance mindset, they are thinking about it from a financial perspective, but you really have to see abundance in all of those same areas of your life, right? Like, yes, you have to know that you're going to make the money eventually again now because you've made money before, but you also need to know that like you may have an abundance of time even when you don't have an abundance of money, and how can you take that time and be more intentional with it? Particularly, for us now, no longer working for corporate and being entrepreneurs, we now have more time to focus on that value of parenting. I love being home every day whenever my kids get home from school. Like that is a value for me. It feels good somehow whenever they forget something at home and I'm like, let me just run to the school and take it, something that's important to know, that so that they know and feel supported and connected. But you can have an abundance of time. You can have an abundance of connections, right? Like you may not have the money, you may not have the asset, but do you know the people?
Yes.
Who are the people that you know that you can connect with? And then you do have an abundance of skill sets. Like there's no way you can be working for 10, 15, 20 years and not have any skill sets. How are you able to tap into those skill sets that you have so that it can then either create more opportunities for you, make more money, whatever the objective is. So when I think about everybody can eat, it's like I have to remind myself that not only can everybody eat, but I'm going to be full in the process. Right.
Okay.
I'm not going to get any crumbs. This isn't getting the crumbs that fall from the table. Like this is being at the table and also determining what's going to be on the table. Like I'm going to eat good. I'm going to eat well. We're all going to contribute. We're all going to walk away full and happy. So everybody can eat. It really is a lifestyle. To your point, like I remember being in the 7th grade and I could picture the classroom we were in and everything. And I don't know what the conversation was, but I remember at the time Busta Rhymes was the hottest thing. And I think his crew was called like the Conglomerate, or like maybe a song he had the, and I was like, that's what I want. I want to have a conglomerate. And I was looking at myself. I was looking at you. I was looking at the other girls in our class, Selena and Taquanda. And I was like, what skill sets do we have? Like whatever professions that we have, we're going to bring it all together. And we are going to be a conglomerate. We're going to have, we're going to create this space where we can all tap into one another and then grow together. And it's crazy that, at 11 years old, 12 years old, that's what was on my mind. But that's where I was.
What you just brought up just really unveiled the foundation of our friendship is everybody can eat.
Yes.
That is the foundation. Because if you think about it, so y'all don't know that the reason why me and Z became friends is because way back in the day, we was babies, like 8 years old. We found out that while we was children, even more, that we had the same boyfriend, right? Now, you ain't supposed to have no boyfriend when you were in kindergarten, but I mean, we us, okay? So, but when we found this out, we did not go into competition. We did not go into establishing superiority. We immediately went into friendship. Like, obviously we're wonderful. Like, obviously we're wonderful. So I like you, girl. Like, and we have been friends since
the 4th grade is when we realized this. So just
the 4th grade, and now we're both about to be 4. Well, I am, and she about to be. Okay. Now, so this is really blowing me because I'm like, there's so much to that, in that we knew there was abundance. There's abundance. Like, and it's funny because the way that we move, we have always been stellar, right? In every area. And it could have been very easy for us to be mean girls to each other. Could have been very easy. Yeah. But we always have come together and encouraged each other and pushed each other to go after this and go after that and supported each other. Like, it has never been a competition. It has never been, if she gets it, then I'll never have it. Or if I get it, she'll never have it. Ever.
Never.
And it has created such a beautiful dynamic between us for decades, for 30 plus years. And I was just sitting here thinking, like, I was talking to my niece the other day and I was telling her, we were talking about a different topic. And I was talking about having, right? Being comfortable with having. Mm-hmm. And people who aren't, people can be comfortable with receiving a gift or a charity. But when you're not comfortable with having it, like the possession of it, you will give it away, or you will like feel like it's going to be taken away. Mm-hmm. Right. And I was like, when you're really comfortable with having it, it doesn't feel like it shouldn't be here. And I feel like, in a sense, sometimes when people are of the mindset that everybody can't eat, it's because they're not fully comfortable and confident with the having of whatever it is that they want to have or that they already have. Even I think about like in the corporate space, mm-hmm. right? When people are going after promotions or, leadership positions, having that position, I can think about some of your corporate situations, having the position, if you're coming from a position of, let me figure out how I can establish superiority over these people, right? Or defeat them, right? So they don't come to where I am. You're not really comfortable, right, in that you possess what it is, yeah, right? It could be gone at any moment. And so that is where that scarcity is coming from, because you're not owning it, that it's you. That's that, am I enough? Yeah. Right? Am I worthy of it? Like, it could be gone in an instant. And I feel like we have never thought that way about each other. And I have never felt that way in any corporate setting either.
So it's so funny that you bring that up with being comfortable with having. Yes, we've been friends for 30 years. However, we only lived together the first 4, 7, 8, 9 years of our life. We lived in the same place. We were best friends side by side. And ever since then, we've lived apart. And I remember going off to like our own respective colleges and even just going into adulthood, we've established friendships outside of each other. And never once did I ever feel threatened by any of the new friends that you mm-hmm. acquired. As a matter of fact, your friends became my friends. Mm-hmm. And I know that some people have that stance of like, I like my friend, but I don't like my friend's friends. And it's just mm-hmm. like, I don't know what that is. But I've always felt comfortable with, and not that I own you in any regard, but having of your friendship, I always felt comfortable with that. I never felt threatened. I never felt like I was in danger of losing it. And that promoted that everybody can eat. So when you brought more people to the table, it's like, oh, I love her. I love her. This is cool. We talk like, so even to your point of this being a part of our friendship, it's how we see the world. It's how we enter into each other's worlds as we've created our own separate individual worlds. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I 100% feel comfortable in our friendship and what we have, and never feel threatened, whether it's someone you're dating or, other friendships, the relationships that you're developing. I just, again, thinking about back to college and just the different paths that we were on, like you joined a sorority and you had like this whole new network of people right. Like I wasn't a part of. Mm-hmm. But that never made me feel smaller or lesser than. Mm-hmm. It never made me feel the need to compete or to prove that you were my friend or that what we had was of value, because I truly believe everybody can eat. And I'm always going to be your biggest supporter, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm always going to be rooting for you. If you're going for the thing, we're going for the thing. Right. Best believe that.
And by you, I mean we.
That's another tip on top of tips. By you, I mean we. We'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, like we've never had that scarcity mindset just in our friendship and in the worlds that we live in. Even if we were, if there were ever times where we were competing for things, it was never a competition between us. It was always support for one another. And I think we just always felt safe with each other. And that's why we've had this relationship for 30 plus years, despite going through different phases of life at different times and living in different places. And then it's always interesting when we end up in the same place as we are now. It's like, right. Oh, shit, like we go out,
here we are.
all things, then we can always come right back together. And those are beautiful moments too. So, yes. But yes, absolutely. Everybody can eat. Abundance is a way of life. I think our friendship taught me that what it meant to be a good friend and what it meant to have a good friend. And so I'm open to new friendships. That then shows up in my professional life, where I'm open to working with new colleagues. I'm open to expanding my team. I'm open to building the team members that I do have. And so I 100% value the friendship that we have, because it really set the foundation for how we navigate in the world. And did that at a really, really young age, at 8, 9 years old.
Yes. Y'all, this episode was amazing. Okay. I felt it in my spirit. Like, we done gave y'all a lot of things this episode. Like, what I want to know is like what your biggest takeaway was. Like, what was your biggest takeaway from this? We covered parenting and the actual value of parenting, right? Like, and then we also covered the tip of everybody can eat. And just like, I want to know, like, how does this show up in your life? Or has it not show up in your life? Like, what have you learned from this? What I learned was clearly the whole foundation of our friendship is the tip. Like, I was just like, this is
everybody can eat.
Like,
everybody can eat. Well, we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to your comments.